Dick Cheney sat down for an interview with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press about the torture report, and as expected, he was an idiotic barbarian. So let's listen to him try to tell us that nobody was even tortured.
Torture was something that was very carefully avoided. It implies that you have a definition of what torture is. What is it?
Well, torture to me, Chuck, is an American citizen on his cell phone making a last call to his 4 young daughters shortly before he burns to death in the upper levels of the Trade Center in New York City on 9/11. There's this notion that somehow there's moral equivalence between what the terrorists did and what we do, and that's absolutely not true. We were very careful to stop short of torture. The Senate has seen fit to label their report torture, but we worked hard to stay short of that definition.
Well, what is that definition?
Definition is the one that was provided by the Office of Legal Counsel. We went specifically to them because we did not want to cross that line into where we were violating some international agreement that we'd signed up to. They specifically authorized and okayed for exactly what we did. All of the techniques that were authorized by the president were, in effect, blessed by the Justice Department opinion that we could go forward to those without, in fact, committing torture.
Let me go through some of those techniques that were used. Majid Khan was then suspected of was subjected to involuntary rectal feeding and rectal hydration. It included 2 bottles of Ensure. Later in the same day, Majid Khan's lunch tray, consisting of hummus, pasta, sauce, nuts, and raisins, was pureed and rectally infused. Does that meet the definition of torture?
That does not meet the definition of what was used in the program.
I understand, but does that meet the definition of torture in your mind?
In my mind, I've told you what meets the definition of torture. It's what 19 guys armed with airline tickets and box cutters did to 3,000 Americans on 9/11. What was done here, apparently, certainly was not one of the techniques that was approved. I believe it was done for medical reasons.
Well, there is no, medical community has said there is no medical reason.
If you go and look, for example, at Jose Rodriguez's book, and he was the guy running the program, right. He's got a very clear description of how, in fact, the program operated. With respect to that, I think the agency has answered it in its response to the committee report.
But you acknowledge this was over and above.
That was not something that was done as part of the interrogation program.
But you won't call it torture?
It wasn't torture in terms of it wasn't part of the program.
I told you about this trick last week. You pay $81 million to 2 corrupt psychologists, and you get to say that your torture was approved by experts, so therefore it's not torture. And he threw it in there also about the Justice Department. You pay a lowly nobody at the Justice Department to sign off on your actions, and then you turn around later and say very broadly, the Justice Department approved our actions, so it must be legal because the Justice Department approved it. And they conveniently leave out the fact that they just picked some random intern at the Justice Department to give them their signature, and then they use that to try to say it's the entire Justice Department that supports them. It's nothing but a pathetic veil of respectability over the acts of war criminals. That's what Dick Cheney is. He's a war criminal. Now remember, he says that we didn't torture. It's not, that's not torture. That's we gotta do 9/11. Protect America, 9/11. So you want to know whether or not it was torture? You tell me. We did waterboarding. We held on to an intellectually challenged man as leverage against his family. We threatened to rape detainees' mothers and daughters. We did sleep deprivation. We did use of diapers. People would shit themselves and we'd leave them in it for extended periods of time. We did the use of insects for torture. Insects. They did mock burials, facial slaps, cramped confinement, as it was called. They played Russian roulette at one point. They did forced rectal feeding, which is just anal rape. They're shoving something up your ass against your will. Where I'm from, that's called anal rape. They also did hypothermia. They gave people ice baths and then made them stand outside when it was cold. One person died from that form of torture. And they admit that they at least tortured 26 innocent people. And what does he go out there and say? No, it's not torture, and we're just trying to prevent the next 9/11. No, what you did was made it infinitely more likely that there's going to be another 9/11. Because look at the numbers. There's been studies about this, how the number of terrorists in the world has increased dramatically since we started waging the war on terror. Why? Specifically because of what he's talking about right there. When you take Muslims, innocent or not, and many of them were innocent, and you torture them, and you kill them, and you go fight in their countries and set up bases and kill untold numbers of civilians, you know what happens? You breed radicalism. You just gave the Taliban an argument, you dipshit. Because now they go to people who were otherwise neutral or moderate before and didn't have any feelings about the U.S., and they say, well, you were on the fences before, but look, the goddamn infidel U.S. just killed your aunt and just killed your best friend. Sure you don't want an AK-47 and to join us? We'll protect you. And then what do people do? They go join the Taliban, they go join Al-Qaeda, they go join Boko Haram, they go join Al-Shabaab, they go join Al-Nusra Front, all these different thousands of jihadist organizations. Many of them didn't even exist before the war on terror started. So when he trots out that argument, oh, it's to stop another 9/11, and it worked. But it didn't work. In the CIA report, they say they got no information out of it that was real. In fact, when they tortured Khalid Sheikh Mohammed 183 times, you know what happened? He admitted to stuff that we learned he didn't do. Why? Because you're torturing him. He's going to say anything that you want to get you to stop. There was an article out earlier today which spoke about how in the 16th and 17th centuries, they used torture when they accused somebody of being a witch. So they would torture these poor women, and then they would say, okay, you got me, I'm a witch. And then they go, aha, you're a witch, and then they'd kill her. Well, you fucking tortured her, so she's going to say anything to get you to stop, because anything is better than being in a state of perpetual pain when you're being tortured. And look, the bottom line is, torture says more about you and your moral code than it does about the people that you're torturing. Because there's no such thing as the good guy by definition. Your actions define who you are. You are what you do. And if you torture and if you kill people, and then after the fact you say, whatever, it's not torture when we do it, that means that you are the terrorist. That means that you are the depraved person. You are the immoral person.